if you can. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the CDAC hearing. I'd like to welcome the other commissioners on the panel to begin with. There's Linda Rose, Tony Wyszynski, and Peter Williams. I'm Robert Harris. I'll be chairing today's meeting. We have two witnesses who will be giving evidence. Our first witness is Inge-Maria Botha, President of the Manchester University Pro-Life Society. And our other witness is Barnaby Khan, who is the Treasurer of the same Pro-Life Society. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. At the beginning of this hearing, I'd like to ask Inge, if I may, to begin the meeting with, if you can give us a summary, please, of what happened to you in relation to the Pro-Life Society, which you preside over. And following that, I will ask Barney if he has any further comments to add to your summary. So over to you, Inge. Thank you.
All right. Well, the society was affiliated with the university 2 years ago now. And a lot of our members within the society are motivated by their Christianity. And personally speaking, yes, that is what drives me to continue with the pro-life movement. Throughout the 2 years, there have been a few hiccups, especially with other students, the SU and the university. With many of our events, there have been protests and derogatory remarks, specifically singling out our religion in that. And the SU and the university haven't really done anything to discipline this kind of behavior. They haven't made any moves to protect that protected characteristic. I mean, most people have heard about the first event we had. That was the most severely protested one, where eggs were thrown at us, people were threatened to get raped, and they were specifically saying things like, fuck the church, fuck the state, we decide our own fate. And I realize that's a slogan, but it's specifically singling out the members of our society who aren't Christian and motivated by that for their pro-life views. Again, the university, they didn't do anything to discipline these students, and it kind of awoke just everything that has proceeded from that. With Freshers Fair, we had another event that was protested, where we had organized a stall like every other society with the students' union. But when the protesters came, the officers of the students' union decided, no, the only option for us was to split the table with the protesters as they were blocking our stall. And they were saying derogatory remarks again, like the fuck the church, fuck the state. The SU actually, they recently this year, before December, they decided, and we think reactively to us, to go pro-choice as a union. And they didn't give us much notice for this. They kind of just dropped us an email and they said, oh yes, we're having a debate about going pro-choice. You guys are welcome to come and give your ideas. So we did organize a group of us to go down and debate with other students about it and hopefully try to sway the argument, or at least represent both sides. But when we got there, it wasn't really a debate. We were kind of forced into tables, and a spokesperson was nominated by the SU. And obviously, this nominated person was very much pro-choice, and they would say everyone's ideas, but they would kind of brush over the pro-life society's ideas, and kind of just say, oh yes, there were some negative implications, but it's fine, we'll go ahead. So they have become a pro-choice union, and we believe it is reactive to us becoming a society. And And when we asked about like the way that the debate was conducted, they didn't really give much of a response. The email was quite abrupt and almost rude. And then at that same debate, we got a letter from a group of students who had joined the society, like our society, but they had demanded that we vote for the dissolution of the society. And we couldn't do anything about it because the Students' Union has actually allowed this to happen in the bylaws. So we met with the Students' Union thinking, oh, they'll sort it out, because they can remove members of societies like who are acting in a way that's not good for society. But they said, no, we have to do this meeting, we have to do the vote. And when we tried to do it in a way that would hopefully try to prevent those people from actually coming, we weren't allowed to. And they wanted to force us to do it online so everyone could make it, and so shut the society down. And also when we met with them, they didn't help. They looked like they were enjoying it. And in the emails, it's quite clear that they were not willing to help at all. And they were on the side of the students who were trying to shut the society down. And then later on, after we'd sorted out the situation, those students who are trying to shut down the society are still on because the SU have refused to help us in that scenario. Then we did a leafleting stall in the street, which the SU had approved and the university had approved. We had asked for security and they said, no, we can't give it to you. We had asked for a body camera and they gave it to us without charge. And the protesters, there was a protest as well planned for it, and the SU still gave us no security and a bad body camera, obviously. The protesters actually stole a load of our things. They tried to steal my personal belongings. And again, they came up, they overturned the tables, they were shouting things again, like fuck the church, and singling out our beliefs as Christians. The SU actually came and told us off for not letting them take my personal belongings. And they didn't do any discipline, or they didn't provide us CCTV footage, even though we asked. We did do a police report, but we're waiting on that to be given to us. And we think it's negligence because whenever we ask for the CCTV, the SU would say, oh no, that's the university that needs to sort that out. And when we went to the university, they would say, oh no, the SU has to sort that out. So it was kind of just lost in transit there. And we still haven't got that CCTV footage. And then the latest event we did that was high profile was a talk by Dr. Carney. He came and gave a talk on the abortion pill reversal. And students, they organized a protest. They came very early to the venue. Also, we don't know how they found out. We are assuming that the Students' Union gave out the location. They made no effort to get us into the building. We were just being shouted at with derogatory remarks, made sure not to get into the building. And also one of the girls was who was protesting was actually falling across and kind of mocking us with it. And that we've got picture evidence of that. And also the SU were giving masks out to these protesters, but not to us. And one of the SU officers in charge was in the protest. So we are quite certain the Students' Union is very much discriminating against our society because of our beliefs. We have done a formal complaint to them, and the investigating officer she has said there's been negligences, especially in regards to the CCTV, and also she finds it hard to believe that the members who were trying to dissolve the society were not kicked out. So that's basically what's happened within the last 2 years.
Right. Thank you very much, Inga, for that summary. Barney, would you like to add anything, enlarge upon what Inga has said to help us understand the overall picture?
Yeah, so I would just say for the first two events, well, for any event actually, I think I emphasised that there's no discerning statement from the university about the actions of those students. Like they haven't said this isn't in line with what we do or whatever. Another thing, it's quite passive aggressive, you might think, is multiple times before the Dr. Kiani event, the room was locked. I feel like this is a kind of quite a passive discrimination in a way. It's kind of, we don't want you here, you know. For the and the there was the, I don't know if I mentioned, we had an alma mater fundraising stall, which they tried to force us to say which society we were, which isn't standard protocol. So that's kind of discrimination, I feel. Those are the things I was mainly thinking. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Barney, for that. I would like to begin, if I may, asking Inga some questions. In fact, before we get into the many issues that you've raised, which will, I think, generate quite a few questions from the panel, can I just ask some general questions just so that we put this in a context? So when did you begin your role as president of the Manchester University Pro-Life Society, Inga?
Well, it was the beginning of this academic year, so September 2024.
Right. And are you still currently the president? You're currently the president,
Yeah.
I take it. And Barney, when did you begin your role as treasurer?
Same time as Inga. So
And you're still
this-
currently serving as treasurer.
yeah.
Right. And how many officers are there on the governing committee of the society?
There are 5, but one is not very active.
Right. And I understand from some of your evidence that you sent in prior to this hearing that there is the possibility for a university society to have possibly one or more officers who are not students at the university. They're not registered with the university, and there's certain conditions that have to be satisfied. So in your particular case, are there any officers who are not students at Manchester University?
Yes, there's one, and he's he's the one that's not very active.
And can I just ask, just for the record, what is his contribution to the committee in that he is on the committee but not a student at the university? What do you see his role as being exactly?
Well, initially he was contacting speakers and that, and he was also involved with the Instagram page.
Right. And how many student members do you have of your society who have signed up?
Signed up officially, we've got 60.
60. And since you occupied the role as president, Inga, how many pro-life events has your society held at the university?
We've done almost one a week, so I'd say roughly between 18 and 20.
And do you have a guest speaker at every weekly event, or does that
No.
happen more infrequently?
It's more infrequent.
Right. And the other general question is, in terms of the denominational representation, are there more Catholics or Protestants, or is there a mix of both?
Well, there's a mix of both. We've got probably 60 or 70% Catholics, 30% Protestants.
And are there any members who don't identify as Christian? Perhaps
There's
another
one.
religion or... Okay. I just have a few questions to start this rolling, now that you've given that background context. So I'd like to talk about the Freshers' Fair. So this is the Freshers' Fair for when? Is that September of last year?
Yeah.
So you said that there were protesters blocking your stall. Were there any security officers in attendance at that fair?
Yes, there were. Yeah, and we had actually asked that they would be near us, so they were allegedly placed near us, but they would patrol around. But they didn't make any move to help us in that scenario.
And how many protesters were interfering with your store at that time?
Probably 7 or 8. It varies throughout the day.
Did you manage to take any video or photographic?
Yes, we did.
Sorry, can we just there's some noise coming from one of the. Oh, sorry about that. I don't know where that noise was coming from. So you got photographic evidence of who they are, right?
Yeah,
And you said that your belongings were stolen. Have I got that right?
that was at a different event, but yes, that did happen. Or yes,
Okay, before
so
I
they
get onto
stole.
that event, right?
Yeah,
Sure. Before I get onto that event, just to talk about the Freshers' Fair. So you have, I mean, normally at Freshers' Fairs, there's a table and people put out books or leaflets. So are you saying that that table was not fully available to you?
yes, we
Can
had
you
to
just
split
can
it
you
in
just
half.
elaborate a bit more on that, please?
Yes, so we were given a normal sized like school table to have all our things on and posters and that. And then these protesters came. They were initially blocking the whole of our stall, and then the SU decided to make both worlds happy. They would split the stall, but they would the protesters were still coming onto our side of the stall, so no one could see.
So effectively, the SU was saying you're only
Yeah,
entitled
they
to
were
half a
kind of like,
stall.
so
Is that right? You're saying they were basically saying because of the protesters, you don't have the right to a whole stall effectively, and you're just going to
Yeah,
have half the stall, and they had the other half.
yeah.
Is that right? And how many security officers were in attendance? You said that they didn't help, but how many of them were there?
I think there were two from what I
Did you
saw.
approach one of them or both of them?
We approached, well, we approached one of them, or at least I did. I'm unsure if other committee members
And
approached
what
them.
did he or she say when you complained? What was the response?
They said the only option other than them having them block the entire stall was to split the table. They couldn't do
So,
anything
so
else.
the decision about splitting the table, if I've understood you correctly, I think you said a few moments ago it was the SU, and now you're saying it's the security officer. Can you just clarify
They
who
were
who it was that told you that the stall had to be split?
so the SU officer who was minding us
Oh, I
was in
see.
cahoots with this security.
I understand. Right. Okay. So can we just move on to the other point about your belongings being stolen? Can you tell us the context of that? What was the event exactly, please?
So this was this year in March, if I remember correctly. We had planned a stall outside the SU. We were giving out leaflets to members of the public. And then these protesters came. They stole initially the box that we had everything in, including clipboards, pens, tablecloths, things like that. And then once they'd done that, they actually came back and they tried to grab my personal black bag with all my belongings in. And then the SU came out, didn't tell the protesters off, but they said we should have let them take the stuff.
Right. So, okay, I have a few questions about this. Have you got any video evidence of what was going on at that point?
No, that's why we needed the CCTV because we had requested a body camera, but it wasn't working.
Okay. And when you stood outside the SU, that's the SU building, I take it. Were
Yeah,
there any other societies there, or was it just you and your
it was
colleagues?
it was just our
And
society.
had you, I'm presuming, but I shouldn't presume, did you get the relevant permission to stand out there at that point?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And how many people approached you, people who were trying to take your belongings and take all your papers, you and your colleagues, how many were accosting you and interfering with the peace exactly?
Well, so they came back 3 times. The first time it was one. The second time it was one because they didn't want to. They just wanted to grab the stuff, and then the third time it was probably about 9 or 8 of them who came and overturned our tables and were shouting in the street.
Right. And over what period of time did this happen on that day? Are we talking an hour or more? Can you just give us some time frame,
I think
please?
it was about 3 hours.
Right. And how many, apart from yourself, how many other pro-life colleagues, whether they're on the committee or just student members, how many people did you have next to you at that point?
Throughout the day, so the first time there were 3 members, the second time there were 5, and then I think when the big band of protesters came, there were about 7 people on our stall.
So 7 people in total, or 7 people at the end who were different from the earlier people?
7 people in total at the end.
So people were coming and going. Your people were
Yes.
alternating, in
Yeah,
other
because
words.
we did a
Okay.
shift.
Okay. And can you just give us a bit more detail if you have it? Who have you complained to about this incident at when you had your belongings taken and all the other disturbances that happened? Who have you complained to, and what's the update on that, please?
So we complained to the students' union. We put in a report to the university, and then we also did a police report, which I'm still waiting to hear from. But they, the university said they couldn't take any proceedings or do any investigation until the police had finished their investigation, and the SU said they couldn't do anything about it.
Couldn't do anything about it. Is that a verbal admission or something in writing?
It should be in emails.
Right. And have they admitted, either directly or indirectly, to having possession of the CCTV footage of the events that unfolded on that day?
So the lady who is dealing with our formal complaint says that there should be CCTV footage of it, yes.
That's someone at the student union specifically?
Yes.
Right. And were these individuals, do you think they were students or people from outside who made this huge disturbance, or do you simply not know?
They were students because they have protested our events quite a lot, so we do know them by their face already. They are definitely students, and they actually gave us a list of their names when they went into our society to dissolve it. So we do have their names as well, but the SU aren't willing to accept it.
So you were given the names of all those people, those students who caused this
Not
major disturbance, or some of them?
some of them.
Right. Okay. Well, that's helpful in terms of any potential investigation. Were they making any verbal threats to you or your pro-life colleagues on that day?
Yes, they were using their normal fuck the church, fuck the state, we decide our own fate, and the usual derogatory remarks, calling us or saying shame on us and that we're disgusting and things like that.
And how did you feel as this was all going on?
Well, it's intimidating and it's quite disheartening, I suppose. I don't think any of us enjoy it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Okay. Barney, would you like to add anything in terms of the experience outside the SU building if you were present that day? Would you like to add any further thoughts and comments?
well, I wasn't actually present, but I think the other slogan they often use is the "keep your rosaries off our ovaries," just another. Just gonna say.
Okay. I just have one or two questions, and then I'm going to ask members of the panel to take it over because I potentially think we have a lot of questions to get through. You mentioned about protests, and I'm not sure which ones they refer to, where you said, I quote, they were singling out our religion, and the university did nothing to discipline the individuals. Can you tell us what protest specifically that referred to, Inga?
So they did it at the first one. They did it at the second one. They've done it. They did it. They definitely did it at the Dr. Carney's talk outside the venue. I mean, even one student is holding a cross there, and she was saying, "Oh, do you want to touch it?" and things like that in a mocking way.
Sorry, can you just confirm when you say the first and the second one, what were they regular meetings of the society, or were they
So the
uh,
first one was the initial meeting, so just explaining our aims as a society, and then the second one was we had a speaker called Madeline Page come in.
Right. So were they just interrupting the proceedings as it was happening? Or was this during an informal gathering at the end? How did they sort of interrupt? How did they speak? In which
The
way?
first one, so the first initial meeting where we were explaining our aims, they were blocking us from entrance and talking to us, and those who couldn't get into the building, because they were locked out by security, they were stood outside being held with abuse by these protesters who were surrounding the building. The Madeline Page one, they
Sorry.
actually followed.
Inge, you should probably mention that they actually got inside as well.
Oh yes, so they did. They got inside despite the security, and they interrupted our event, I think three times. And we had to be moved to different rooms to avoid them. Oh, two different ones.
I just have one closing question, and then I really will ask other members of the panel to continue. When they try to take your personal belongings, it's a natural response when someone's belongings are being taken or someone's trying to take the belongings. One resists, one shows some resistance, and I presume you did that. So did you feel that you were going to be knocked on the floor? Can you just give us a few more details of what was going on at that point?
Yes, so the first time, it kind of took us by surprise. We hardly even noticed that they took it. But when they came for my personal belongings, we didn't get violent or anything. We just held on to the bag as he was dragging it away. And one of the girls who was holding on to the bag was actually dragged across the floor.
Right. And did I hear you correctly earlier? Did they actually take your personal belongings, or some of them, or not, or nothing? No.
No.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering all those questions, both of you. Barney, did you want to add any further points to what we've discussed so far before we move on?
Yeah, for the Freshers' Fair, we said that the half the table was blocked. I don't know. I should also emphasize that they were trying to stand around the other half to stop people getting to the half which was ours, even though the half was actually ours. But yeah.
And how did you personally feel, Barney, as that was going on?
So what we did was we kind of tried to make a ring around the table to try and stop them doing that, but they were kind of pushing back, which was a bit strange, like trying to like physically push us. Well, quite a bit.
And it was Inge, you, Barney, and how many other people during the course of the day at the Freshers' Fair did you have to support you around the store?
Near the end, when I was there, it was like 2 of us, I think. Is that right?
But during the course of the day,
Yeah.
were there extra people?
Yeah, we did a shift again. So
I understand. Okay, well, that's really helpful to start with. I'm going to pause now, and I'm going to follow the order of names on my screen to ask people to continue with their questions. Can I ask Linda Rose, please, to continue with the meeting and to raise questions to both Inge and Barney? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you, Inge and Barney, for joining us this morning. It all sounds quite intimidating. Can I just explore with you, though, to begin with? You say the pro-life group was started 2 years ago. What was your initial membership? Because you mentioned that you had around 60 members, if I'm getting my figures correctly remembered. Did you have that number join when you first started, or did it grow?
It has grown. Initially, there were quite a few people who came to the event, but in terms of the official sign up, I think it was about 30 to 40. This year, it's definitely grown.
So has it grown in response
Yeah.
to? Okay, well that's interesting. And what is the percentage of male-female membership of your group?
Officially, probably 60 or 70% to 30. So 70% male, 30% female.
Right. Did it or does it surprise you that you have such a high percentage of male members?
No, because I know a lot of pro-life Christian women who would want to join, but they've been intimidated to join because of all the backlash we've received. So they don't want to come to events and show their um, identity to protesters and that, because they've been known to get quite personal and malicious.
Hmm. So has the male membership of your group grown considerably over the last 2 years?
Yes.
And why do you think that is predominantly? Is that because they are wanting to defend the pro-life cause, or because they're, well, why? Uh, let me leave you to answer that.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be able to, obviously don't know the psychological reasons, but I would assume it's just because I know a lot of the females I've talked to about joining and who haven't, because of the backlash, have said they don't want it to influence their university, like their degree. So I don't know if they care a bit more about that.
Okay. Barney, do you as a male have anything to add there?
I feel like one of the big things is why we've had more people join is we've had so much advertisement in a way. Like the first event was so publicized that I feel if you're at Manchester, it's kind of like and you're pro-life, you kind of got to join. I don't know.
Okay. I mean, in some ways, these days, it's quite strange to have such a strong response against pro-life meetings. But the opposition that you've encountered, again, I was looking at the video that you sent the link through to, and again, it seemed to be a very high proportion of men who were involved in that, who were really being quite aggressive. Do you know if the opposition has just been drawn from within the university, or if it's wider, or where this was publicized, and what the groups are who are a part of the protest?
So, I mean, I would think that it's a mixture of Manchester University students, Salford University, MMU, and also members of the public, especially for the first event we did that was protested. Um,
I mean, the two groups would be the Stop Manchester Pro-Life and the Manchester Leftist Action. They're like
and
the
also,
ones who are kind of, yeah,
and also
yeah,
feminist, the feminist
that's
group.
true.
So, sorry, just the Manchester Feminist Group and the Manchester Leftist Group.
That Manchester Leftist Action and Stop Manchester Pro-Life.
Okay, and so you've actually you specifically got a group, the Manchester Stop Pro-Life, is that right?
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. The leftist action, do you have any more knowledge of the groups that are involved or of the individuals who are involved in that, where they're coming from?
We don't know them personally. I mean, they know us. They've done all the background checking on us. And when we were given the names of the people who wanted to dissolve the society, because they had to be, it's a long story, but there has to be 5% of the society who want to dissolve, well, who want to call for an emergency vote.
Mhm.
And so they joined to fulfill that 5%, and then they gave us the sheet in person with their names on saying, we want this vote. And she specifically said, oh, I remember you, to me and another committee member. So we know some of them personally, but not most of them.
Mhm. Okay, it would be interesting to know a little bit more about uh, the ideology that's motivating them, one feels. The feminist group too, how big is that within the university?
Oh, according to their Instagram, I think it's over 1,000 people.
1,000.
On the Instagram, like following. I don't know how big the actual society is. I don't think it's that big.
Well, they had a pro-choice society that died, they were, I think, which was like set up in response to us, and then they just kind of like no one came.
Really? Oh, that is interesting. Okay. I've forgotten the question I was going to ask at that point, and I really wanted an answer to it. I'll come back to that. Uh, the protests that you've had at the meetings, I mean, you've described what is very clearly assault as well as attempted theft, both of which are criminal offences. You had police in attendance at some of the meetings, did you?
Yes, so the initial meeting, we had police presence. At the second, so Madeline Page's speaker event, there was police presence. At Dr. Carney's, there was police presence. I think that's all of them.
Okay. They witnessed some of the behavior of protesters. They witnessed physical contact.
At the first event, I'm not too sure because they came only near the end to escort us out. For Madeline Page, I'm sure they did, yes, because they were even following Madeline Page and they had to escort her to her taxi to get away from the protesters.
And did they issue any warning? Did they arrest anybody?
No.
Did that strike you as strange at the time?
I mean, I would have, yes, because I would have hoped the police would do something, even about the theft we had. I would have thought they would have followed it up, but I don't know. After this, I think my expectations have gone down.
Okay. Have you made any form of formal complaint to the police?
Yes, we've made two because at the initial protest, I was actually told to get raped by a man in protest. I reported that. They did nothing. And also for the theft, we reported that and they didn't do anything either.
So you've made a formal complaint about their non-action.
Oh, no, no, we haven't.
Right. Have you considered that at all?
We haven't really thought about it.
Oh, it might be worth it.
Mm.
Why do you imagine the student union is so hostile? I mean, bearing in mind that universities are founded for the furtherance of knowledge, for discussion, debate, to listen to others' views, to interact with them, not to try and close down debate, which is actually what seems to be happening here. Why do you think the student union has been so partisan in their support for so-called pro-choicers and so failed to give you support?
I personally think it's because they all are pro-choice as well, so they're letting their own personal beliefs influence their ability to give others freedom of speech who don't hold their same views. I mean, it's quite self-explanatory by the fact that they are now a pro-choice union.
Hmm. Barney, anything you want to add there?
Perfect, so no.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm going to leave it there for the moment, Robert. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Linda. Can I ask Peter if you can take over with your questions, please? Peter Williams, thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert, and thank you, Inga and Barney, for attending today and for your testimony. So my question would be just, you mentioned, I think you've had 18 to 20 meetings so far, and how many of those have been subject to this kind of what looks like harassment?
Let me think. Probably about 7 have been interrupted. I mean, that's not counting or maybe 6, not counting the dissolution of the society.
Okay, so and other than the ones that we've mentioned, are they just people interrupting, or that what are the manifestations have taken place that maybe you've not noted so far?
Usually protests or coming in and interrupting or overturning our tables.
Right. Okay, so there's a consistent pattern of behaviour then, if at a minority of events so far.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are with regards to your relationships with the specific individuals who are high up within the student union? I remember you mentioned that there was at least one officer of the student union who was actually part of the protest. How have been your interpersonal relationships with those individuals? I mean, obviously we have an email bundle, we have some things on paper, but in terms of verbal interchange, what have been has there been anything of a discriminatory nature, would you say, within that context?
Not
Oh.
really.
They do make it kind of hard for you to book events, though.
Yeah,
I don't know if
do.
that's
They're very nitpicky about us booking events and also doing things off uni campus. In terms of our meetings in person, they generally keep it, I would say, professional. Although while I was I had a few meetings with them over the vote for the dissolution of the society, and they were visibly enjoying it, or enjoying our distress, I suppose. And also with the event that the officers were there at, like the protest, there were 2. So one was in the protest and the other one was handing out the masks to the protesters.
How would you characterize their use of risk assessment, health and safety concerns vis-a-vis your members and your health and safety and risk, vis-a-vis the risk and health and safety of protesters? Does there appear to be a balance?
I don't think so, because they have no problem with making us stand outside in front of these protesters who are clearly quite angry and who have been physical with us in the past, but they don't take us to a secure location to actually have the event, or at least escort us in where we would be safe from them. Rather, they prioritize their safety by saying, oh no, we can't touch them, we can't move them out the way for you, you just have to grin and bear it outside.
Right. And what would you say is the status now of the pro-life society? Is it secure? Do you have, and we're just about to enter into some holidays, well, you probably already have. What's the status for it in the next year coming up?
So we've re-registered as a society. Yeah, we're getting events ready. Obviously we are undergoing that formal complaint with the SU, but because it is nearing summer, I don't know if there's going to be put like a halt on that, and then we'll pick it up again when we come back.
Okay. How safe do you feel around campus? You, or indeed not just yourself, but other members. How do you feel about that?
Well, after the first event, we do not feel safe at all. I don't think any of us did, because actually one of our members of the previous year was jumped apparently in the street by someone in relation to it. And also that one of the protesters saying they remember us is not the most nice thing, or like something you want to hear, because it sounds almost threatening, doesn't it? But I think we've kind of adapted to the level, I suppose. I mean, I don't know what you would think, Barney.
I've only been recognized like, okay, maybe twice, but once just after the first event, and I thought it was going to be a lot more. I don't know whether it was just, I don't know how many times you got recognized, but yeah, apart from that, I was called by name, which was kind of strange, like, because officially I'm Joseph Barnaby, but informally I'm Barney, and they were like, "Hello, Barney." It's kind of like, Okay, that's a bit weird. But yeah, aside from that, not much.
Okay. And how has this, all of this, would you say, changed your behavior or changed the way that you run your society, run your events, what kind of events you might select to actually try to organize, etc.? How has it affected that, would you say?
It's made it quite hard to book events in because the Students' Union is quite, I think they use it as a way to try discourage us to do events because they make it extremely hard for us to actually book events in. And in terms of how we run the society, I suppose we're a bit limited in buildings we can use because we always have to think, oh, maybe there'll be a protest. We need to have like multiple exits and things. So yeah.
So it hasn't dissuaded you from organizing events, but would you say that there's been an intimidation that might have led to you changing your behavior in terms of the kind of activities and the level of activity you would engage in?
Yes. Yeah, I suppose, yeah. Yeah, because we don't have that many speaker events. They're quite infrequent comparatively. We would have liked to do more, but they are a big hassle to book in and organize and do all the risk assessments for.
Mhm. So do you think that a person of lesser fortitude would find this chilling on their activity and their speech?
I think we all find it quite chilling. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I don't have any more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Tony Rushinsky, can I ask you to proceed with your questions? Thank you.
Hey both, just briefly, this is a great day for me. It really, really is. I'm just so pumped to have met you both. I mean, I think it's so encouraging, right, that there are people like you in our universities who aren't willing to be crushed, aren't willing to be dissuaded from something you believe in, to stand up for what you believe in respectfully, genuinely, with decorum, with honesty, with faithfulness, with dignity. It's just wonderful. On such characters were great countries built, and great countries of the future will depend. It's such a joy to come across you both. It really is. It's huge. And it's really, really encouraging. And anybody who listens to this will be equally encouraged, I'm sure, to know that there are people like you out there in our universities. It's absolutely marvelous. So first of all, thank you very much, and very, very well done to both of you. And anybody else involved in your society too. I'm just a couple of curiosities for me. First of all, you mentioned that the society was dissolved. It isn't re-established yet, or it's being re-established for next year. How did that work out? And won't just the same thing happen again?
So it wasn't actually dissolved because we looked at the bylaws of the Students' Union to try and find a loophole, because obviously this is a huge loophole that people can just do this to societies.
Yeah.
And there was one, which was to hold the meeting far away from the university campus, so that, and make it an in-person vote, so that people who just wanted the dissolution wouldn't really be bothered to go all the way down, like far away from Manchester. And I mean, the SU, they did try to force us to do it online so people could vote, like everyone, but we did manage to do it in person and also online, but none of the dissolvers attended, so we didn't dissolve in the end. But we did also try to vote in our constitution to add in clauses that would protect us from it. But our constitution has to be approved by the Students' Union, and they got rid of any clauses that would help us in any way, which also in our formal complaint, the investigating officer has found that a bit weird that we can add those clauses in. So we are at the moment weak to it happening again. Yeah.
Right. And it's just so ironic that they call themselves pro-choice, but it's an absolute cowardly lie, because they're not pro-choice at all, because you don't get your choice. You can't choose at all. You're not allowed to be heard or seen or entertained in any way. So the idea that they're pro-choice is just a hypocritical, cowardly lie. But gross action and violence, and nothing short of physical violence, which has taken place against you guys. And it's absolutely abhorrent. And I'm just picking up on some Linda's things about complaining to the police about not taking action. I wonder how much further have you taken this? Have you written to your MP? Have you written to the Vice Chancellor? Have you gone public with the media? Because again, we live in a democracy. We live in a country where people, especially in universities, should be allowed to express reasonably their opinion. And in fact, the law explicitly protects your ability to talk about those things publicly. And you should be able to do that without fear of being accosted or abused or threatened or stalked or whatever else is taking place. So I'm just wondering, have you taken things further and escalated them beyond the SU?
No, we haven't.
No, we did, because we wrote to the registrar of the university.
Oh
Do
yes,
you
yeah,
remember?
we brought it to SU and university.
I actually did write to my MP as well, but I was going to wait until the university replied to see if they did nothing, but we're still kind of waiting on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing you lovely people have got courses to do as well. That's something else which is happening in the background there somewhere amidst all this. But really, I would encourage you to escalate this. It's just, in the context of the whole wider national debate about freedom of speech at universities, you are an absolute prima facie case in point, and people need to know more about it and to give you the support you need to effectively cajole the CU into actually the SU into being actually democratic, which is what it should indeed be. Another quick question, just to clarify. You mentioned police involvement on more than one occasion. Can you clarify for me who instigated that? Who called the police?
I think it was security.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so on all those occasions, security has decided to call the police. And did any of that happen before the events, or was it always kind of contemporaneous with the event having taken place and protests having kicked off?
I think the only event it was like there from the start, so organized, was Madeleine Page's event.
Right. Okay. And again, we're looking at mainly men here turning up and intimidating girls who want to make a choice about their body.
I think the crowd was, yeah, I mean, it has varied between the different protests, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of girls, I'm guessing, don't want to be in that kind of confrontational situation on either side of the fence. So, it's just very ironic. And just to summarize, I suppose, so you're coming at this from a position of saying, well, look, you have strong pro-life views because of your Christian belief, and that Christian belief has been explicitly cited by protesters and people who are intimidating you as part of the reason why they're intimidating you. The whole idea of choice just seems to be off the table from their perspective, actually, because it's their way or no way. And so you feel you've been discriminated against by the Students' Union for not giving you equal ability to any other students or any other society to express your opinion, and to do so in a safe and protected manner. And also possibly by the university as well for not stepping in and saying, hold on, get your act together and protect these people like you protect other people too.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Robert, thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Tony. Inge, if I may just get some clarification on some of the points you have raised. If I've heard you correctly, you said that there were 3 specific events at which police came, and that one of the events with Madeleine Page, the police were there from the start, but at the other 2 events, they were called at some point during the meeting. Who organised the police presence at the Madeleine Page event? Was it your people or the university or some other explanation?
So Madeleine Page's was under a different president, so I'm not too sure of the ins and outs of it, but I would assume that George would have requested it and the SU would have organised it.
So the other 2 events, you were president at that time for the other 2 events? Yeah. Okay. You mentioned in passing, oh, sorry, Barney, did you want to say something?
No, that's not great. So George was the president for the first 2, Inge was the president for the latest one, which had the police.
Thanks for the clarification. Inga, you mentioned in brief passing earlier something about background checking or background checks that they did. Can you say who they were and what background checks were done on you exactly? Can you elaborate for us?
Well, that's the students who were protesting, like the groups that we mentioned earlier, like MCR, Leftist Action, the Stop Manchester Pro-Life group. Their members have gone into great detail of like our online footprints and that, and seeing who we are. I mean, one of the committee members for last year, so the first year, actually resigned because they had done so much digging on him, and they had found what they would assume would class as dirt on him.
And are these, well, what you say, the word dirt, presumably some claim about scandal, is that being placed online?
Yeah, it was just, I think, something he liked online. Yes.
Right. And what other, do you have any other things to say about any online comments from these anti-pro-life society people? What kinds of things are they saying online about you or your society? Can you just tell us a bit more about that?
I mean, we've had a wave of fan mail, I suppose, usually telling us we're disgusting, especially the males because they shouldn't have an opinion, or especially the females because why aren't we pro-choice? It's just basically loads of swearing, loads of animosity, and also some, I would say they're aggravating because some of them will post pictures and say terrible things to try get a reaction from us
Yeah.
about like abortions and that.
So
That's the other thing. Sorry.
please
They
carry on.
mass reported our Instagram account as well, which took it down for a while, which is quite funny, but it got back to it again eventually.
And of these online comments and pictures, would you, either of you, I can start with Inga, would you describe any of those comments or pictures as threatening to you or your colleagues?
Yeah, some of them have been tell me where you are so we can find you. We've got, oh yeah, some of them have been very threatening, yes.
So can I ask, would you class any of them as death threats?
I think we've had a few death threats, yes. I would have to double check, but I think we have, yes.
Online?
Yeah.
Perhaps if I could ask, once the meeting is over, if you can, in your own time, if you can look into that and perhaps get back to our Commission Secretary with a screenshot of what you might
Yeah.
have as far as evidence is concerned. Barney, would you like to add any further thoughts about the online presence of your opponents and what sort of threatening conduct or imagery they might be displaying?
I mean, I'm not in charge of the Instagram account, so I haven't seen as much of it as Inga, but I know that, yes, some of the stuff is really, really disgusting.
I think one of you said earlier, I think it was Barney, you said that a letter has been sent to the Chancellor of Manchester University.
The registrar.
The registrar, sorry. When was that letter sent approximately?
It was a few weeks after the Dr. Khan event, so I can
I think it might be May.
probably just yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
when was that? I didn't hear.
Was it like April, maybe something like that?
April. And you've had no response?
We had a response, yes, and then we had a meeting, and they were kind of saying that it wasn't their responsibility; it was like the police or something. Mainly, I think that was right. Yeah.
When you say you had a meeting, who specifically was at the meeting representing the university? Was it the registrar, the person of the registrar, or somebody else acting on their behalf?
No, I'm
Gary
not.
Brown.
Yeah,
He
I
was
don't know. Yeah.
his head of security, who was
Yeah.
representing the university.
Right, but did you initially, in your written response prior to the meeting, did the registrar respond to you personally, or one of the registrar's representatives? Who initially
He
responded?
responded.
He responded.
He did.
And he said that you would be met with the head of security. Is that correct?
No.
So what's the relationship between the letter that you got and then your meeting with the head of security? Can you just close the
The
gap
meet-
between those two things for us?
I don't think the meeting had anything to do with the letter as such. It was the SU because we had complained, or
Oh, okay.
yeah,
I'm obviously confused things.
and
Yeah.
yeah, they joined that together because they knew we had sent in a complaint to the registrar.
Oh, I see now. Yeah.
Right.
That's
So the registrar's letter, would I be right in understanding now that you've said this, that they did not propose any further steps in that letter in
He
terms of
said
what
he
was
was going to
happening?
talk with the students' union, I think, about the presence of the officers. But apart from that, he seemed to think that everything was okay.
Right. Have you considered at any point approaching any legal organization or Christian organization that provides legal advice to give you further guidance and support in all these issues?
Yeah, I think Inge's been doing that.
So
Yeah.
are you proceeding with that or in some way?
Yes, so we've got two organisations who are helping us at the moment, ADF and Freedom of Speech Union.
That's good to hear. I'd like to ask you about dating here and specific events. So it came to our attention that some of the events that attracted a lot of intimidation and threats and violence happened in March 2024. In fact, you, Inge, have been quoted at some length by at least two Christian outlets who are sympathetic to your society. And I just wanted to be sure what event this refers to. Is this the event that Dr. Kearney was the guest speaker, March 2024?
No.
March 2024 is our first event, so the meeting where we were explaining our aims.
Right, and you've already referenced that. So is that the event where there's a video? There may be more than one video, and please clarify. There's a video that is linked to one news article from Right to Life, lasting 10 minutes of all the mob-like scenes outside the university building, and I think you and others can be seen from a window. Is there one video or more than one video? Because we need to be sure that we've got the right event that we're linking video to.
Well, there's quite a few long videos.
Okay.
It could either be from this event or Dr. Carney's or
Okay.
even Madeline Page's. I can send you the videos we have and
That would be
label
very
them
helpful,
for you.
so that we know which event it is and what date it is, so that we've got some semblance and chronology in place. At one of the events, there was a big sign displayed, and this is in the video: "Destroy Pro-Life Society." What event does that refer to?
I think that's the first one when it was in,
Yeah,
they actually
probably.
came into the room and they were holding it up.
Right. And was that the event at which some eggs were thrown at some individuals and also at the building? Can you just give us some further detail on that, Inge?
Yes, so we've actually got videos of that too. That was the first event when they were throwing eggs at buildings. Yeah.
Is that the event at which there was a 22-year-old pregnant lady
Yes.
among your number? And I understand that when she left the building, she had to be escorted in a police van to go home. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you have the opportunity to talk with her after the event, just to ask her how she was feeling and whether she was feeling safe again?
Yes, we did. We're still in contact with her. I think Barney might.
Yeah. She goes to the same church.
Right. And one other question here. I think you've perhaps referenced this indirectly, but I would like some more detail if you have it. Given all these events and all the trouble that has erupted from the opponents, did you at some point reach out to the university? I think you've really said this, but I'd like some clarity. Reaching out to the university and say, look, we have an event happening on this date. Can we ensure security is present there? I mean, I know the security hasn't actually helped you, so my question almost seems redundant, but can you offer any comment on that?
Yes, we have. So at our stalls, all of our stalls, I have requested security every time, and they've never put security with us. Or I mean, with Freshers Fair, they've put them near us, but they were already there at the event, like Freshers Fair. I also requested some for some of the events that weren't uninterrupted, which funny enough were there, but then they kind of phased it out and started locking the doors so we couldn't get in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and also for the stalling events, we've never had security with us, even though I have requested it, especially for the first one we did in public. And that was the one that we got our things stolen. Also for Dr. Carney's, I requested security presence and it was provided, but they didn't do much.
Yes. We had Dr. Carney as one of our other witnesses who presented evidence to this commission, and he briefly referenced the event at which he spoke when you've been president, and he said that somebody, I understand it's yourself, and I would like to ask some questions. He said that somebody had a kind of rape threat made verbally, very vile language that was used. Would you care to just give us some details on that, if that's all right?
Yeah, so that was me. I got told to get raped by this man who was inches from my face. I could feel his breath on me when he was shouting, and he shouted it very loud. That was what I reported to the police. But I don't think any investigation even was done with that.
And did that man have his face shown, or did he have a mask or a balaclava?
He did have his face shown, although I wouldn't know who he is.
And I mean, that is not recorded in any of the video footage, is it? No. And from memory, it's possibly impossible to remember because of all the noise and the atmosphere of what was going on outside the building and your willingness to just get into the building as quickly as possible for safety. But was there any woman in proximity to this man who used this vile language to you?
I don't think so, no, because I was the last one there. Yeah, it was no one else.
Yeah, that's where I went.
Yeah, but I was behind. And then she also got stuck in the barriers when the police were trying to keep us safe, I suppose. And we had to pull it through.
So when you informed the police about this, Inge, what was your method of communicating with the police? Was it through the phone? Did you go into a police station? What did you actually do?
So I called them twice about it. One was for the report. I reported it over the phone, and then I also called again, or they called me to get more details about it. And I said there would probably be CCTV because it is outside a building that it happened, but I don't think they tried. I have done a subject access request to the police to see what was done about it.
And when did you put that subject access request in?
Probably about 2 weeks ago.
So it's relatively early yet in terms of waiting for a response.
Yes.
So did you feel at any stage with police officers you've been in contact with over the phone or in any other way, have they shown any empathy for what you experienced? What's been their response and their attitude towards you?
Well, so when I was actually reporting it, the officer who I got on the line was very sympathetic. I think it might be because she was a woman. I think there is quite a lot of sympathy for that kind of threat. But the second one wasn't as sympathetic. He just wanted to get the information, I suppose.
Sorry, is that he, the second one, a man?
Yes.
Can you just give us a description, because we've spoken about so much today and so many different events, just in your own words, can you give us a summary description in a couple of sentences? I'll leave that to you. What you've experienced as president of the Pro-Life Society and all the extreme opposition that you and your colleagues have faced.
Well, I think a number of parties who are involved have been derogatory to us. They've singled us out. They've stalked us. They've done lots of extensive checking on our personal background and things. It's and there's been hate speech, I suppose, and just general putting us down because of what we believe, because it's different from theirs.
Thank you. Barney, would you like to add anything to that overview of what's been experienced by
Yeah.
you and the Pro-Life Society?
I think a huge thing is intimidation. Like, it's so obvious they're just trying to like silence us by being scary. Um, and then another thing is the university, they've said like, oh, we have to keep the society because of whatever the law, but they never go, these people aren't with us. They're like the protesters when they shout hate speech. Like, they never say that that isn't something the university believes in. Like, so it's kind of like they haven't disowned those people ever.
Before I have just a few more questions. Before I do that, I just want to go around the panel once again. Linda, would you like to put forward any further questions?
Yes, thank you, Robert. Just well, three actually. You've described what seems to be very clear evidence of harassment, stalking, and hate speech on Instagram, social media. Have you actually specifically reported this to the police? Because it should be investigated as hate speech.
The actual Instagram
Yes,
messages that we got.
yes.
I didn't realize we could do that. Would it be
Yes, you
taken
can.
seriously?
Sorry?
Would it be taken seriously by the police though?
It jolly well ought to be, yes. If they don't, then that should be the basis for, again, a complaint, because there have been a number of cases from the other side with allegations of hate speech, and people have been investigated. So yes, the police should be investigating this.
I would just say I think that falls under malicious communications, Inga. So yes, that is something you can report to the police.
And it should be. And if they fail to take action, that too should be followed up on. So sorry that I was intent on asking questions there, and it's turned into a little bit of a, but I would recommend that that is done, I think. Just well, a couple of specific questions. You mentioned that there was an attempt to take your bag, and that you were told by the Students' Union, I believe, that actually you should have allowed the protesters to take your property. Did they
Yes.
give you any justification for that statement?
I think it was just so there wouldn't be a scuffle outside their SU. They didn't really say why.
Okay. Again, this seems because what it is actually they are complicit in crime, aren't they? You know, allowing somebody to take your property, and they're just saying, well, let them take it. So that seems a little strange. There should be, one feels, a stronger justification if they can't give it, that again, they should be subject to inquiry themselves. And I'm grateful to Edmund, who put up in chat something taken from the Student Union policy on safe spaces. Students are expected to respect the right of all members and staff to enjoy the Students' Union as a safe space environment, defined as a space which is welcoming and safe and includes the prohibition of discriminatory language and actions. It seems to me that they are in clear violation of their own codes of practice, whatever, and that again, this should fuel a complaint to the university, and beyond that to I don't know, maybe even the Secretary of State for Education. But they do seem to be very strongly in breach of their own guidelines if they are encouraging you just to let others take your property, harass you, intimidate you, and everything else. My other question is in relation to, and this is just clarification here. You mentioned there was a fundraising event. Now, I'm a little unclear on what that is. This was a general fundraising event, was it? Where all societies were invited to go and fundraise, or what actually was the setup there?
No, that was just our society. We'd organised it with SU, and it was for, was it Alma Mater Fund? I think, Barney.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, so that was only our society.
Okay, and the funds that were raised, sorry, we're going to who? Alma Mater, did you say, or
Yes.
Yeah.
which is exactly?
It's an organisation which helps pregnant students. It's the offshoot of Spark, but
Oh,
it's not. Yeah, pretty
okay.
much.
So you got some funds from this. Well, I believe it was a wine and cheese, was it? Is that right?
No, it was a bake sale.
Okay, but you did get a response. You got some funds.
Yes.
Now, did this have to go through the Students' Union in order to be paid to the recipient charity? Or
Yes.
okay, and they were happy with this, were they?
I think Barney can take this
Well,
one.
we actually had some issues because, I mean, it's kind of our fault because we didn't realize the way you had to donate and everything with fundraising because, like, the Students' Union is like a charity. We should have really got more permission or something, but they were actually okay about it, to be fair. Yeah. But it worked out.
Okay, right, thank you. So they were actually fairly supportive from that overall, you think, whereas in
In
other,
that specific instance, yeah, I would say so.
but in other instances, you feel they have actually been potentially hostile. And I'm just thinking in mind of the large protests that you have come up against. And you have said, I think, that they could only have learnt of the events through the student union actually telling people. Do you have any
Yeah.
evidence of that?
So I've written that into the formal complaint that we've submitted to the Students' Union and the university. And yes, some of our committee members think that that is probably a very likely way that it got out. The investigator did say that it could have been either that the SU officers did give it out, or that it was being talked about in the office, and one of the members of those other groups that we have already mentioned was there and overheard, or that one of the people on our society sent it forward and it got out that way.
Okay, but whichever, there seems to be a lack of care for you and a general leaking environment, which is not helpful. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Just to add to that, actually, because of the event location that was leaked for Dr. Carney, we did have me and I think Eric or someone else on the committee had a meeting with the SU, and they are trying to get us to. Initially, they were trying to get us to give the location out to everyone. Now that it's clear that we can't keep the venue a secret.
Which makes
But
no
that-
sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because they've seen the protests that happened. They say they can't facilitate us getting another university building if there is a protest. So it just doesn't make sense that they would try and get us to give the location out every time to everyone.
Yeah, so I imagine you feel from that there is a covert hostility going on there that's trying to
Yeah.
undermine what you're doing. Okay, thank you. I have no further questions, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. In terms of this second round of questions, I think, Tony, would you like to take this opportunity to ask any further questions?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm glad that you mentioned that you've got ADF involved. That gives me a lot of peace of mind that actually you've got some wise heads, not that you aren't wise heads, but wise legal heads backing you up behind this and hopefully giving you advice about what you do next and all sorts of things like that. So I'm really, really pleased about that. I think one of the points that Linda made, I was going to follow up on. I'm just wondering, what other illegal attacks upon your person does the university or the students' union think you should just let happen? I mean, I think that's absolutely outrageous. And the final point, as opposed to question, was with respect to withholding the locations of meetings. You shouldn't have to do that. You should be able to hold your meetings whenever, wherever you want to in university facilities, and the university should allow you to do that. And anybody who tries to stop you should be kicked out of university. And if one or two people were kicked out for breaching the SU's own regulations, as have been supported and raised to us, then I think others might think twice before doing it, and maybe freedom of speech on university campuses would flourish a little bit more. But no other questions. Thanks again for everything that you're doing. Keep up the great work. Were there to be anything I could do to help, don't hesitate to get in touch.
Thank you, Tony. I just have a few closing questions, if I may. The event at which Dr. Carney was the guest speaker, Inge, I understand from his evidence that he gave to us that because of the terrible disruption that happened that evening, you had to find an alternative venue, which you found successfully in the end. Can you just speak us through some of the events that happened in the lead up to finding this alternative venue and the problems that you might have encountered?
As in finding the new venue?
Yes.
Well, obviously when the event was cancelled by the university, we were juggling with a few different places on where we could go. Luckily, we have some sympathetic supporters in the city of Manchester, and they said, "Oh, you can come to this venue, and we'll put you up there." So, I mean, it wasn't that hard to find a place. It was more the fact that it felt like we were being kicked off university, which is supposed to be where society events are supposed to happen most of the time.
Dr. Carney also said in his evidence that some of those who wanted to attend your event were not allowed to attend because they didn't have a pre-booked ticket or something to that effect. Can you just comment on that story, please?
Yes, so the SU has this system that they try to get us to make tickets with the students' union, like through their website. It doesn't really work that well for us because people just turn up, and obviously we know these people, so we let them in anyway. So what we've been doing is we have a system where we have the uni tickets available, or we also have a list of people who have said they're interested in coming. People couldn't attend Dr. Carney's events also because obviously the protest wasted a lot of time, and we were told that we would be let into the building eventually, but it never happened. So an hour and a half was probably wasted just standing there. And obviously people have things to do on a Friday evening. And also there was a girl who wanted to come to the event, but because of the protest, she was a bit intimidated by it and she did leave. So she also wasn't able to attend the event afterwards.
And Dr. Carney also said he understood that there were some people that evening who were allowed in by police to the building, despite the fact that you and your colleagues were not allowed in. Can you just verify that and add any comment?
Barney, you were there earlier than me, weren't you?
Yeah, I don't think I think it was more they got in before most of the protesters were there, and then when we got there with Dr. Kearney, protesters kind of formed a line which blocked everyone from getting in.
And how many people approximately were outside that building during that 1.5 hour standoff?
On our side or
Yeah.
the protesters?
Oh, well, if you can give us a number for both sides, perhaps.
Maybe was it 100, 150 maybe on
What,
their side?
opponents, and how many on your side?
Yeah. Maybe 15 to 20, something like
Right. And do you know approximately how many of the other side were allowed into the building?
that. No one, none of them were allowed in. So
So
we had
who
two of
actually got in?
ours,
Who actually got into the building? Two of your side.
two of us before, because they got there very early.
I think
Right.
three. There were three of
Was it
us.
three?
Right. So they were just helping to set up the room. I take it. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yes.
well,
Right.
I think I don't know why they got the word that they did.
I'd just like to ask Inge one big question here. So because your society has faced so much hostile opposition, and you've laid out the facts that you have had to pursue lots of complaints and with the authorities, with the university, with the police. I'm imagining this is taking up a lot of your time when you could actually invest in studying for your degree. Can you just give us a little summary of the kind of time you're actually investing in this?
Well, it does take up a lot of time, and I have actually done noticeably worse in my degree than what I did last year. I mean, I've still passed, but noticeably I have had less time to actually do my degree. Rather, it has taken up a lot of time because there's been so many different avenues, like legal things, complaining to the SU, sorting out events. It takes up a lot of time.
Would the word burdensome be appropriate to describe what you're facing at the moment in terms of all the emails that you're pursuing?
Yes, yeah.
And Barney, would you like to add anything from your experience about how this is this taking up your time, or are you not involved in these communications with the police, etc.?
I'm not as involved in the admin side, so Inga does a lot of work. She's great. I feel like, yeah, it's fallen a lot on Inga.
Okay. Do any other panel members have any further questions at this point?
Only just to say, Inge, I'm very, very sorry to hear about the treatment you received, particularly, which I think is disgusting. So beyond that, I just wish you both all the very, very best. I just want to put that on the record.
Just before we close, if I can just summarize the fact that in your own time, Inge, you've got a lot of things to attend to on your course, but if you can send to our commission secretary the video links that you have and the dates and what the event was for. And I may possibly contact you at some stage in the next couple of weeks just to ask some further clarifications. That might be a possibility. And if you've got the time, we would appreciate a response. And any further evidence you've got, please kindly send to Edmund, our commission secretary. That would be much appreciated. Thank you so much. Do you have any further comments before we close, Inge or Barney? Anything further you'd like to say? No?
No, just thank you very much for asking us to come give a statement.
Well, thank you so much for your time, both of you.
Yeah,
We
thank
deeply
you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you both very much.
All right.